Well, that's present income, right? Present income, right?
Yeah, present income, which is
Future wealth, present income.
okay. Yeah, thank you. But that's not the only way to form partnerships in this square model, the horizontal pairs, because there are also vertical pairs there. So let's just take a look what the vertical pairs would represent. If you have the annuitant and annuitant with a D form a partnership, that's going to give you present wealth. Let's see why. Is that right? No. No, that's not right. What do you get out of this partnership of the annuitant and the annuitant?
Exchange of income and wealth.
Wealth into wealth, into income.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it solves their problem. In other words, you think of the annuitant as a junior man starting out in life, and the annuitant already in his harvest years, okay? So, all right. Now, perhaps this will be clear after looking at the other pair, entrepreneur and inventor. One has a demand for wealth, the other is...
Demand for income.
Demand for income.
Demand for income.
Yes, okay. So in what way do they complement one another? Suppose they form a partnership.
There could be an exchange.
Exchange of income and wealth again.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
The entrepreneur doesn't have one.
Peter, you are going to say more about this. Tomorrow morning, Peter will give you an overview of this. Okay. So, you see, various partnerships can be formed and various exchanges made, and this is, at this point, what I want to emphasize is the superiority of this model to the very simplistic diagonal model. This penetrates far deeper in solving the problem than the diagonal. You see, we see the four very basic corners where this exchange of income and wealth takes place. So, somehow, this which I want to see, that certain partnerships give you present wealth, and another partnership gives you future wealth, not present wealth and not future wealth. Okay, in a way you might say that this if there is a partnership, vertical, the annuitant is bargaining with this other partnership, the entrepreneur and inventor. And one partnership represents net present wealth, and the other is representing net future wealth. And now you consider these two bargaining units trying to come to an agreement. On what terms will they make the exchange between the present wealth and the future wealth? And you will find that really you need somebody who can make this exchange smoother and bargaining smoother. And this need finds its fulfillment in the appearance of the who? Capitalist. The capitalist is a specialist who specializes in making exchange between present wealth and future wealth. Now this is very important, because in the traditional presentation of the story, the capitalist is brought in too early. You see, the Shylock, the Scrooge, is appearing very early in the story. But if you follow my approach as it evolved from the simple diagonal through the square to the pentagonal, then this is very natural, that there is need for a specialist to make this bargaining smoother. And not only that, but also there is such a person as a marginal inventor and a marginal entrepreneur. What we have in mind is that we have a list of the names of all entrepreneurs, but we rank them according to efficiency or success. You know, there are very successful entrepreneurs who will survive on the North Pole as well as in the Sahara. But then there are less productive entrepreneurs, less gifted entrepreneurs, and so on. There is a spectrum, and they are ranked, okay? There's no shame attached to not to be at the top, but it's just a fact of life that if you have a group of people, and from some point of view, the group can be ranked. Anyhow, the point is there's a marginal entrepreneur, and the marginal entrepreneur may or may not find a partner to go ahead and form a partnership in a productive business. And the same is for the inventors. There are lots of inventors, some of them extremely efficient, and then less and less and less. And somewhere in between, there is a marginal inventor. And this person is not fixed. It depends on the circumstances. There are circumstances which could improve the efficiency of this marginal inventor, which will move him up the scale, so a fellow to his other side will become the new marginal inventor. You see? So what kind of circumstances could there be to make sure that more inventors become successful and fewer of them will be submarginal? Let's call these submarginal inventors who don't find a partner to make that possible, to produce future wealth. You see, we talked about this horizontal partnership. If the annuitant with a D finds a suitable inventor, they make a partnership and they produce future wealth. Okay, the combination. However, there are some of the inventors will be out of luck because they are not top talents, they don't represent top talent or top efficiency or in some ways, but they are still useful people. But unfortunately, under the given conditions, they don't succeed to make a partnership, and as a result, this inventor will be a sub-marginal inventor, which means that he's swept to the wayside. He cannot compete successfully, so his contribution to the development of society comes to nothing. And there are many examples of that. In a way, Leonardo da Vinci was a submarginal inventor if we consider the invention of the airplane. You are probably all aware that he had lots and lots of inventions. Some of them were immediately picked up and put into effect, developed and put into effect. But not all. And an example of a very important invention, as it turned out later, was the airplane. I mean, he has very detailed designs which survived, which show that the airplane, how it can be built and the various mechanisms to direct it right and left, up and down, and so on. So, in a way, he was a submarginal inventor. The same way you could discuss the entrepreneurs, and you will see that some of them could be very, very gifted and successful, but for some reason or other couldn't find the proper partner, the annuitant, with whom he could form a partnership which produces present wealth. You see? And this is a social loss. It is, of course, a personal loss of the entrepreneur who is swept to the submarginal class, and the inventor who is, through no fault of his own, is swept to the submarginal group. But it's also a loss of society. I mean, just ask the question, what would have happened if Leonardo da Vinci could find somebody an annuitant who would make this partnership possible. Then we would have had airplanes for the past 400 years. It would be a different world today, wouldn't it? Well, anyhow, it's futile to speculate on that. But I think we all agree that it's a social loss that they couldn't find their partner. Now, this is the social significance of the appearance of the capitalist. You see? The capitalist would have made a lot of submarginal entrepreneurs into successful entrepreneurs, and a lot of submarginal inventors successful inventors, simply by widening the scope of exchange of present wealth to future wealth. The bargaining between these two would be helped with the go-between man, the capitalist. And that would have helped the submarginal inventor as well, the submarginal entrepreneur, to move up on the scale, but it would have helped society also, because it is possible, and I'm just speculating, that given the capitalist at that time of Leonardo da Vinci, which it was made very difficult, the obstacles there, the usury laws and so on and so forth, the capitalist wasn't there. But if he had been there, and Leonardo da Vinci would not have remained a submarginal inventor of the airplane, then there would have been airplanes in the 16th century, you see. So I really want you to understand this, and perhaps during the question period you can ask questions and we could further clarify this. So this gives you the Pentagonal model of the capital market, which makes all these improvements possible, especially the improvement in the position of the submarginal inventor and the submarginal entrepreneur. And I'm sure Peter will have something to add to this, and during the question period. Now, a couple of things before we break up. One question which comes up, there's another term which is important, and I would like to put it on there. This is, we are going to talk about entrepreneurial capital. So two kinds of capital. One is entrepreneurial capital, and then underline it, and underneath, now underline, and then the other is what I call R&D capital. What does R&D stand for? And abbreviated R&D. It's too long. Okay, now go back to the previous chart. When, I'm asking everybody now, when does entrepreneurial capital come into existence? Which partnership? We have talked several partnerships possible in the square model.
With the inventor.
So which particular partnership agreement will create entrepreneurial capital? In isolation, no entrepreneurial capital. Once the partnership is made or formed, then all of a sudden becomes capital, usable capital, entrepreneurial capital. What partnership of the several, which we can talk about here, would do that?
Annuitant entrepreneur. Annuitant entrepreneur.
That's right, the top horizontal pair, okay? Now, I can't ask Sandy to write all this down, but please make a mark that this particular partnership, you can even give numbers, number 1, number 2, and so on, is the formation of the entrepreneurial capital. Now, the same way I'm asking the question, what about R&D capital? How?
Annuitant inventor.
Yeah, the lower horizontal pair. See, as soon as they agree, these two, bingo, there is new R&D capital. You see, the interesting thing is that all the ingredients are there, but if there's no agreement, which is basically an exchange, then this capital just doesn't exist. Although the ingredients are there, but the exchange is not. And therefore, as far as dynamics is concerned, as if we didn't have all those ingredients. But once the agreement is made, as if out of nothing, but we know it's not out of nothing because there are all those ingredients present. All of a sudden you have capital, two kinds of capital. Okay? This is I find it very interesting that you have to go through this analysis to understand how capital comes into existence. There are ingredients, but in themselves, isolated, they don't mean anything. And once the exchange is made, then they come into existence. Now I have this bit here on the causes of chronic unemployment. The presence of, I'm reading this now because the time is short, presence of chronic unemployment in the economy indicates that entrepreneurs and inventors are being hampered by social and institutional arrangements in their efforts to form R&D capital. From the perspective of a government-run compulsory social security scheme, appears highly retrogressive. So take the social security system in the United States, and of course in other countries are similar. They have similar schemes. The idea is that every person after a certain age is going to get a guaranteed income. It's not perhaps very high, but it would be a minimum substance so that the person can survive. Now, what I'm suggesting here, this is retroactive, because the negative side of this is that the R&D capital formation is being hampered. Okay? Well, unfortunately, I'm running out of time here, but I think this is pretty straightforward, so we can return to it after in the break, in the question period, and then you can also read it here. This is one thing. And another thing is, which I'm going to say perhaps a little, but not too much about, is the triangle, because after all, you could ask the question, what about the triangle? I mean, 2 is the diagonal, 4 is the square, and then the pentagon and the hexagon. But what about the triangle? Well, there is a triangle too. And this is the triangle of the entrepreneur, the inventor, and the capitalist. And this is a kind of holy trinity, according to Mises, and I fully agree with him. Because if they form a partnership, that's really the dynamo, the source of dynamics in the whole thing, which drives the whole system. And so what Ludwig von Mises says is that the triangular partnership of the entrepreneur, inventor, and capitalist is the most potent and dynamic force in the economy which society has heretofore produced. Ludwig von Mises considers the individuals in the partnership the most progressive elements in a capitalistic society, who provides benefits to the non-progressive majority in every possible way. The particular combination of talent, brain, and willpower represented by the threesome, the triangle, heralds a new epoch of progress far beyond the capabilities of individual talents if employed in isolation. So these are 3 talented people. If they're isolated, they are still productive and they still contribute to the benefit of the whole society. But if they can form a partnership, triangular partnership, then the efficiency multiplies by a high factor, So this is the insight of Mises, and it's well worth your time to think about it. Because this is what explains this tremendous progress. And of course, Mises is not ashamed to say, which would sound very undemocratic in our age, that the majority of people, of society, is a non-progressive crowd. They are consuming. If you give them new gadgets, they grab it and run with it. But they wouldn't think a moment how it came about. Why is it that our standard of living is so much higher than our parents or our grandparents or great-grandparents' standard of living was? They never think about that. They just consume and consume and consume. So Mises is not shy to say that, but that's very, very undemocratic. But somebody has to say it, and sometimes we just have to say, all right, I think we can take a
15-minute coffee break. Thanks very much.